Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The presidential immunity victory that President Trump received, completely eviscerating the Jack Smith indictment, has literally nothing to do with what this Wisconsin judge engaged in, the potential criminal acts that she engaged in. However, she is citing the Supreme Court victory for Trump as a reason. You can see here Daily Beast, MSNBC News, New York Times. She's citing presidential immunity as her defense. She's pleading not guilty because she's immune from prosecution as a judge performing official acts. However, it was not official. There was nothing official, and hit subscribe to this channel right now. What she's accused of is not her official acts as a judge. Okay, so what she is accused of is not the official act or how a judge should act in a courtroom. Check this out and hit subscribe right now.
Yeah. So let me read a little bit from the criminal complaint here. And Judge Dugan says, despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. A foot chase ensued. The agents pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him. According to this complaint, Judge Dugan was visibly angry that ICE was there to arrest Flores Ruiz.
The judge in this case almost certainly did not want federal agents or federal law enforcement to perform their duty. The judge almost certainly felt it was her moral or ethical or legal obligation to impede or prevent ICE agents or federal law enforcement from doing their job. Simply, if she's pleading not guilty, she's stating she had immunity to do so. Okay, because President Trump was immune from a purely partisan effort to imprison him. President Trump was accused of performing a speech where he knew he was wrong. Of course, that's complete and utter nonsense. You can't imprison a president because of a speech you think that where you think he's lying. If that's the case, how many times did Biden lie in 3 weeks before Harris took the Democratic nominee away from him? He stated for 3 straight weeks he was going to stay in the presidential contest. Okay, he lied all through his teeth. Okay, then of course Biden lied about the Hunter's laptop, not knowing about the business deals and potential graft and bribery. And of course, if you want to use 18 U.S. Code 371, which is what they tried to use against Trump, you can indict every single person involved in spreading the hoax and the absurd myth that Trump was a Kremlin operative. Those were overt lies and deceit, and people did conspire to deceive people. That's why you still have millions upon millions of morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats who truly think that Trump is a Kremlin operative to this day. So let's continue. The judge, however, should not have acted according to the indictment in the manner that she did. She obviously wanted to protect, quote unquote, protect the undocumented individual. Let's listen to who she was trying to protect.
He's even tried to kick the deportation agents out of the courthouse.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you and Sandra, this was truly horrific. This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up 2 people, a guy and a girl, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Wow.
You know, Madam Attorney General, great to have you here, and thanks for coming back on America Report. So we remember these words of Tom Homan, the border czar. This was March 17th, and his message on these judges who apparently are trying to get in the way of this administration's efforts. Listen.
How to kill all.
So if you read the indictment of President Trump, and if you look at the immunity victory for President Trump, okay, the immunity victory was predicated upon Democrats doing everything possible to imprison Trump and making absurd, outlandish claims like he knew he was lying. And he performed a speech and tried to overturn very fair and just and the outcome of the election. He didn't try to overturn anything. He tried to simply voice his opinion and viewpoint that he was upset that Democrats treated him like Biden and Bernie Sanders. Okay, which is what they do to their own. They don't even have functioning primaries. Trump had every right to vent frustration as a president. He had every right to perform a speech. If you feel that he's lying, you still can't imprison him, because if that's the case, you could have imprisoned Bill Clinton, Bush, President Obama. Before Libya, that country was completely decimated because of a failed NATO intervention. If you look at the speech, didn't correlate to exactly what took place prior to the intervention. So, I mean, you can look at, and then everyone involved in deceiving the public about Trump and the Kremlin, everyone involved in deceiving the public about that day in January. Okay, there was exculpatory evidence, video footage withheld from the public, possibly destroyed by Cheney and others. But this is the presidential immunity that she's claiming. It was not an official act to impede federal agents. It was an official act by Trump to voice his discontent if he felt that he was railroaded by the Democratic Party and media. Sorry, that's not only the First Amendment, but it's like most of the country now sees that they tried to imprison Trump because they thought that he knew Democrats would never have cheated him, which is absurd. Not for 1 second did he ever think that Democrats didn't try to cheat him. Look what they did to Bernie Sanders. Look what they did to Biden. But you look, Democrats ousted Biden before his tenure was over. That's how absurd the whole thing was. And you have to ask yourself, if everything was fair and square, why on earth did it take them less than 4 years to do away with the most popular candidate of all time? Essentially. Well, technically. But listen to this. This is the immunity victory that the judge is trying to compare her situation with.
Trump attorney and former federal prosecutor. Gentlemen, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Greg, big question in everybody's mind, will this decision, because it sends it back to a lower court, so you got the more back and forth going on, will it delay Jack Smith's trial until after the election?
I think it's quite possible that it will, because it goes back to the trial court, and Tanya Chutkan, who is the trial court judge, has to hold evidentiary hearings. That may involve witnesses, perhaps. And if Trump doesn't get what he wants, he will file, I'm quite sure, an immediate appeal. And if that's granted, then you're talking about litigation that could stretch into weeks, maybe even into the motives of Jack Smith. And that's a high burden. And second of all, they said the trial court cannot look into the motives of the president. That's forbidden by the separation of powers. And so, you know, all of this, you put it together and it makes it look much harder for Jack Smith to pursue his case against Donald Trump.
Well, as you.
So the issue of motive here is obvious. President Trump had every right to simply claim that what was taking place was not fair, not right. And when they say he made baseless claims, he's allowed to make baseless claims. Okay? Democrats have made completely baseless claims about Trump being a Kremlin operative, about Trump stating that certain people were fine people, which he never stated that. I mean, you can go through hoax after hoax. Democrats make, and media has made baseless claims leveled at Trump from day one. Okay. Nobody's indicting journalists. Well, President Obama did, actually, more journalists than anyone. But anyway, the point is, with Trump, they tried to indict him utilizing legal statutes that were broad and ambiguous. That's what I'm trying to explain. With this judge in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court essentially convicted, or would convict, if she ever tried to use the presidential immunity precedent, because it's not her. If the charges are accurate, it is not her authority or her power. She doesn't have the power or authority to hide or scurry away somebody wanted by federal authorities. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is huge.